So in the next section, we'll work a few examples. So they want us to use the associative properties and things like that to simplify these expressions. So we can rewrite this. We have three things added together, and if you have parentheses, it says to do those first. Well, we can't add 3 and x because they are not alike. But we can use the associative property and rewrite it like this. We left it in the same order. We just moved our parentheses. We changed what was associated together. Instead of 3 plus x, we associated the 2 and the 3, and we can do that. 2 plus 3 is 5. We can't go farther because the x is not just a number. Here, they ask us to use the associative property for multiplication. If everything is multiplied, we can change what is associated together. So instead of the 5 and the x being associated together, we can associate the 3 and the 5. Notice it's the same order. We just changed the order, essentially. Or I say the same order. Everything is in order from left to right. The parenthesis just changes the order of operation. So 3 times 5 is 15. And then that's times x. Here we actually have to use 2. If we just move the parentheses over here, then we would have x with a number still. So let's do this. Let's change the order of these. So we've commuted, we've used the commutative property, and now we can use the associative property. We can write everything down in the same order, and we can just move our parentheses. And that works as long as we're adding or multiplying. Now, if we're subtracting or dividing, that doesn't work. But if we're adding, that's fine. So 3 plus 7 is 10, and then we have an x. This problem wants us to use the distributive property. Notice we have 2 terms inside. Terms are things that are either added or subtracted. So if we have something in front of the parentheses, we're supposed to multiply that times the inside. So we do 2 times x and 2 times the minus 5. We do 2 times x and 2 times the minus 5. And then we put those together or add them. So 2 times x is just 2x. Positive 2 times negative 5. A positive times a negative is negative. 2 times 5 is 10. Same type of thing here. We have 2 terms on the inside, so we're going to distribute. And we're distributing again because it's what's out front times the inside. So it's negative 2 times x plus negative 2 times negative 6. So multiply these together, multiply those, and add them together. So a negative times a positive is negative. 2 times x is 2x. Here we have a negative times a negative, which is positive. 2 times 6 is 12. And again, those are not like terms, so those don't combine. Here we have 3 terms on the inside. 3 things being added. The 2 out front is being multiplied times it. So we distribute the 2 times each of those. 2 times x plus 2 times 8y plus 2 times 4z. So 2 times each term. So 2 times x, we can call 2x. If we have 2 times 8 times y, we can use our associative property and do 2 times 8 is 16, then times y. Same thing here. We could use our associative property and associate those together. 2 times 4 is 8, and then times z. So since all of that is a product, we can multiply the numbers together and then the letter. Since all of that is a product, multiply the numbers together and then the letter. None of those terms are alike because they have different variables, so we can't put any of those together. Now, if we have a negative in front of a parentheses, there are a couple of ways to look at this. Often people look at it like this. When we have a number in front, we distribute that number. When we have a sign, we distribute that sign. And to make that less confusing, sometimes people will put an understood one there. So if we distribute like this, a negative 1 times a positive x, negative times positive is negative, and anything times 1 is itself. A negative 1 times a negative 9, well, negative times negative is positive. 1 times 9 is 9. So if we compare our signs are just opposites. The top x is positive, the final x is negative. The top 9 is negative, the last one is positive. So when we multiply by a negative, it changes our signs. Now another way to deal with the signs is to think about it as an opposite. We've discussed before that if 3 is a positive 3, negative means the opposite of 3, the opposite of a positive 3. So if we have a negative in front of this parenthesis, it wants the opposite of x minus 9. Well, the opposite of a positive x is a negative x. The opposite of a minus 9 is a plus 9. Notice we end up with the same thing we got here, just a different way of thinking through it. A couple more. So we have several things going on, so let's do, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So on the inside of parentheses, those are not alike, so we cannot put those together. There are no exponents. There is multiplying here. We have multiplying, so 2 gets multiplied times both of those. 2 times the 7x and 2 times the plus 2. And then don't forget to bring down the plus 8. We're not multiplying times the 8 because it's not in the parentheses. So if we reassociate here, 2 times 7 is 14 times x. Here, 2 times 2 is 4, and then plus 8. So if we combine the 4 and the 8, because those are just numbers, 4 plus 8 is 12. And that's as far as we can go with this one because 4 x's and just numbers are different, so we can't combine those. Now lastly, we have the same type of problem. So inside parentheses, those are not like terms because one has an x, one doesn't. There are no exponents, but there is multiplying. So we distribute here. Negative 3 times 2x plus negative 3 times negative 5, and then bring down the minus 2. So a negative times a positive is negative. 3 times 2 is 6. X. Positive times positive is negative times negative is positive. 3 times 5 is 12, or 15. Got things going on in the background. I can't speak correctly. 3 times 5 is 15, and then we bring down our 2. So you end up with minus 6x. 15 minus 2 is 13.